Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, Adam Draws Stuff. I'm Adam and I draw stuff, and today I wanted to dive back into tutorials and show you how to draw expressive eyes. I've done tutorials in the past where I've shown you how to draw eyes in general, but they've always been a little bit more basic where I just cover the building blocks of how to create the eye itself. I'd like to leapfrog off of that today and show you how you can add some expression and life to your eyes to make a more dynamic drawing. So with that being said, if you would like to learn how to draw these eyes right here, I've got 5 different examples. Just keep on watching. Okay, so firstly, we're gonna start with the odd one out, and that is happiness. Now, the reason that I say that happiness is the odd one out is because this is going to be the only of the 5 examples that I'm going to draw with the eyes completely closed. Since that one's gonna be a little bit unique and different, we'll get that one out of the way first before we move on to the other 4. So a hallmark of happy faces or happy eyes is that they are oftentimes scrunched together pretty tightly. So we're actually going to draw the eyelids completely closed around the eye. So we'll start with a upward curved line. For each eyelid. And it'll sort of border on cartoonish a little bit, but I'm gonna exaggerate these just a little bit, so it really kind of drives the expression that we're trying to get home. So, since the eyes are completely closed in this example, we're going to be relying on everything that's around the eyes. So all of the wrinkles around the eyelids, the eyebrows, all of that is going to convey a happy set of eyes. So around each of the upward curved lines of where the eyelids meet, we'll draw a line going up and down on each one. And you'll have to remember in each of these examples that in the eye sits an actual sphere, an eyeball. So these lines that surround the upward curved line kind of signify that there's a circular eye underneath of there. So we'll add those real quick. And then to create a little tension on the corner of the eyes, we'll add a few small lines that radiate out, kind of giving the person sort of crow's feet, just a few. And that kind of really makes the eyes look clenched pretty tightly. And if this is a little bit hard to see, I'm gonna go back through here and I'm gonna use a darker pencil so that way it's a little bit more visible on camera. Okay, so that should be a little bit better. So just to kind of ground the eyes so that they don't look like they're floating, that they're actually part of a face, we'll add a line here to suggest sort of the bridge of the nose, and on the other side as well. And then going down around here, sort of kind of where the eye socket would be. And then for the eyebrows, when you're laughing, you're typically not doing a whole lot with eyebrows necessarily. So for this, we'll do a fairly neutral shape for the eyebrows. And maybe a little line here to suggest that they're being raised up a little bit. So it creates a little bit of tension on the eyebrow. And then the exact same thing over here on the other side. So as you can see, even though the eyes are completely closed, you can still make out that these are happy eyes, they're smiling. There's not even a mouth, but you can still tell that this person is happy. And that is just due to everything around the eyes, all of the tension around the eyelids, and then just a slight raised eyebrow. Next, we're gonna go to the opposite side of the spectrum and cover sadness. So whereas I said this was going to be the only example that had the eyes completely closed, next, and for all 4 of the rest of the examples, all of the eyes are going to be open. So we'll first start by drawing the opening of the eye. And to get a sort of sad look, what we're going to do is draw the eyes kind of drooping downward a little bit on each corner. So we'll draw a pretty small opening for each eye. When you're sad, your eyes typically aren't wide open. They're a little bit more closed than they would normally be. So we're going to keep the openings closed fairly tightly. So as you can see, it's not drastic. If you over exaggerate the shapes or the lines around the eyes, it'll start to look a little bit cartoonish or a little comical. But you can tell that they droop down on the corners just a little bit, and that slight droop really kind of drives home that these are sad eyes. So in each eye, we'll go ahead and draw an iris, and we'll make this pretty large. So just 2 curved lines will form the iris of each eye, and then we'll go in and give each one a pupil. Now, keeping the pupil and the iris large inside of the sort of tightly closed eyelids gives it sort of a more doe-eyed, sad look. And then, if you wanted, we can draw a little line that follows the bottom eyelid as sort of a little teary-eyed. And if we want to go in and add several highlights, that'll give the effect that the eyes are really watery, and that just kind of adds to the sort of sad look. So we'll add a few highlights in there too, just to really drive home that whoever this is really going through it. I'll just quickly shade in the pupil and the eyelid. Or excuse me, the pupil and the iris. Okay, so I quickly shaded in the pupils and the iris. We've got some highlights, we've got some tears. So the other thing that we now need to do is, just like we did up here, we need to add a little bit of tension around the eyes and the eyelids to just really drive home that this person's feeling sad. So, whereas these were a little bit more open and rounded in the smiling face, for the sad eyes, we're gonna keep the tension lines a little bit closer to the eyelids and the general shape of the eye. So we'll add a couple above, and then maybe one below, like that. And the same on the other side. And then like we did before, we'll draw a couple of lines up here that point up and toward the eye, and then down and toward the eye to kind of anchor the eyes to sort of a face. And then following the general shape of the eyeballs, how they kind of curve downward a little bit, or they point downward, sloping a little bit, we're gonna do the same thing with the eyebrows. So they're going to be mostly straight, but they're going to be sloping down at the ends, just like the eye itself did. And again, this is a little bit more exaggerated, or a little bit more sort of cartoonish, but it kind of drives that point home again. As I keep saying, I keep using that analogy to drive a point home. I don't know why. I had to come up with something else. So one, and then we'll do the exact same thing on the other side as well for the other eye. And then a couple little lines around the front part of the eyebrow, just to suggest like maybe they're scrunching their eyes a little bit. Next, we're going to cover confusion. And a hallmark of a confused expression is asymmetrical eyes. So maybe one is a little bit more closed than the other, or one eyebrow is up and one's a little bit more down toward the eye itself. And that's what we're going to do here to convey a look of somebody who's confused or just unsure. So we'll start with the left eye, and this one will be just kind of neutral. It won't be doing a whole lot other than just kind of hanging out here. So we'll do one basic eye shape. actually. Let me go a little bit darker. And then another one on the other side. And this one's going to be a very similar shape. The only difference here is that the one on the right is going to be a little bit wider this way. So it's going to be open just a little bit more than the other eye. And again, that's going to give us that sort of asymmetrical look that's going to help convey a sort of confused expression. Okay, and then again, we'll draw the iris inside each eye. And a pupil inside each one. Okay, so right now when you're looking at them, they kind of look a little bit lopsided. It doesn't look right. So what we're going to do now is anchor these eyes in place with some details surrounding them, just like we did with the first two examples. So for this one, I'm actually going to start with the eyebrows first, because I think that's going to give you the quickest impact and show you exactly how this is going to look confused. So we'll draw the first one here. The eye that's a little bit more closed is going to have an eyebrow that's closer to the eye itself. So we'll also have maybe a little bit more curve than the other eyebrows. So it'll start pointing downward at the end and curving up a little bit and down, and then just slightly back up. So that can have a little bit more curve and kind of movement than the others. And then this one will be an even more severe curve, except this one's going to be going all the way up. You can do it pretty far up and then just slightly back down toward the tail again. And then already without anything else, you kind of get the idea that, oh, well, these eyes look confused or like something's just kind of amiss. So we'll add in our lines for the bridge of the nose, and then a few more lines around the eye. Now, since this eye here has a little bit more tension, it's a little more compact, we'll have a few more lines in it to kind of convey that tension than we will over here on this eye. So I'll add a line that's close to the eye, and then another one that kind of hangs out in between the eye and the eyebrow. And then maybe even another one right there, down there, like that. And then over here, we'll do one more. We'll just do one on this side, because the skin over here is actually being pulled away, so there won't be a whole lot of deforming of the skin in there. But we can, since this eyebrow is pushing some of the skin up, we can add a line here to kind of suggest that it's wrinkling up a little bit. So those are our confused eyes. Now, next we're going to move to surprise. So what makes eyes look surprised or shocked is that they're wide open. It's an involuntary motion. They just open as wide as they possibly can, and all of the iris is showing. Usually the pupils are shrunken a little bit, and that really gives a look of shock or fear. And that's what we're gonna go for with these. So these are going to be the most wide open eyes. So we're gonna follow the same general shape that we've been using this entire time, except this one is going to be quite a bit wider, much more round than the other two. And it's almost sort of, think of a lemon shape. And same thing on the other side. Okay, and now we want to draw the iris inside of each eye. And since the eyelids are as open as they can possibly go, this is going to be the only one where you can see all of the iris, where none of it is going to be hidden behind the eyelids at all. So we'll do the one and the other. And my circles are absolutely atrocious, but you get the idea. And then two small pupils, and like I said earlier, drawing small pupils also kind of furthers that emotion or that indication that somebody is fearful or shocked. The contracted pupils really kind of convey that look. So we have our wide open eyes. The other thing that we're going to do now is add several more, just like we've been doing, several more lines around the eyes that follow the same shape of the eye. So they kind of go around that lemon shape, if you will. And even though we didn't do it for the other eyes, I think for this one we should also give them eyelashes. And this will further the illusion that the eyes are wide open and big by having some eyelashes that stick out quite a bit. And that'll just make them look even more shocked and surprised. So just a few lines. Don't have to think too much about it, just throw them in there. And now we'll move on to eyebrows. And just like the eyes are really wide, the eyebrows are also spread kind of far apart. They're usually up quite a bit more than they typically would be. So we'll draw them curving up quite a bit, like that. And then the same on the other side. And really, all we're doing is we're keeping everything just open. Really, really open, like that. And then since the eyebrows are pushing up, again, we're going to have a few little tension marks, a few little lines here showing how the skin is being deformed above the eye, or excuse me, above the eyebrow. Like that. And just maybe a couple more lines to kind of connect the bridge and the eye socket together. There you go, those are our surprised eyes. And for our fifth and final set of expressive eyes, we're going to do anger. Now, what really conveys an angry look, or angry eyes specifically, is less the eyes themselves and everything else around them. So angry eyes tend to be the most tense, and they also tend to have the most deformation around the eyebrows and then the skin of the eyelids, and all of the muscles around the eyes themselves tend to contract and really just create a lot of lines and cast a lot of shadows. So that's what we're going to be relying heavily on to create angry looking eyes. So we'll keep the eye openings fairly small. And that smallness conveys tension. The eyes are being held closed, they're held tightly together. Iris in each eye. And if this is a good illustration here. So these eyes look a little bit more narrow, not only because the opening itself is not quite as large, but as you can see, the irises in each of these eyes are about the same size, but all of it is visible in the surprised eyes, and about maybe 2/3 of it is visible, or maybe a little bit less, in these eyes here. And that's because the eyelids are cutting off most of the iris. So that furthers the look that they're scrunched together, that they're a little bit closed. And then we'll draw a pupil inside each eye, and we'll keep them pretty small too. And that kind of gives a little bit of an angry look. So now we can begin to add a bunch of lines around the eyes to sort of suggest that they're being constricted a little bit and that there's a lot of tension there. So we'll just go in and add several lines kind of on all sides of the eyes. And then a few down here, kind of where the nose would be. We're not going to get into noses, but picture a nose here. This would also be scrunched up a little bit, and then up above as well. A few more lines. Then we'll go ahead and add the eyebrows. And for this set of eyebrows, to kind of give them an angry look, the beginning, or the inner part of the eyebrow, right here where it starts, is going to be the closest part to the actual eye itself. and it's going to come up a little bit away from the eye, like this. Same with the other side. And then there's also, when you're angry, you tend to hold a lot of tension around your eyebrows also. They're scrunched up pretty tightly, so we'll have several lines around here kind of showing that all the muscles around the eyebrows are contracting too, because you're just so mad. You dropped your Capri Sun and now your whole day is ruined. And your eyebrows are showing it. So something like that. Now you can kind of go a little bit crazy. It's easy to add a few too many lines and make it not necessarily look the most believable. But if you wanted to experiment a little bit with that, another thing that you can do to kind of add a little bit more dramatic effect to angry looking eyes is to add some kind of harsh shading and emphasize all of the different lines and wrinkles and deformations in the eyes. So you can go underneath the eyebrows, maybe between the eyebrows like that, down here. You can just add quite a bit of shading to just make it look a little bit more harsh, and that'll further the look of anger. So there you go. There's my quick primer on how to draw expressive eyes. These are by no means the only ways to create expressive looking eyes. There are literally thousands of small adjustments you can experiment with to create totally different emotions. But I think this is at least a nice place to start. So hopefully you got something from this tutorial. If you did, maybe go ahead and subscribe and I might just love you forever. On that note, as always, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.